Jade Simmons, wonderful to see you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Jade, you are somebody who I want to say, began life as a classical musician. You are a classical pianist, but you do so much more. Talk about how your career has developed and how you use that to talk to other musicians.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, St. I'm still trying to figure out how did all this stuff happen, right? You kind of look back at it and wonder, where did I twist and turn? And I think the big difference now is that these days, things that I used to call detours, I call them now like divine detours. They were exactly where I was supposed to be headed. But I think, like most musicians coming out of music school, you really just have one or two ideas of what you're going to do. And for me, it had to be performance. I never wanted to teach. And I remember telling my mom, I'm never going to be a piano teacher. And she said, when you get older, you're going to want to replicate yourself. And I thought, she has no idea. I'm never going to teach piano. Sidebar, you fast forward all these years later, and a large majority of what I do is teach. It's just not at the piano. And I think, like most musicians, we come out armed with our Chopin and our Beethoven, and we realize nobody really taught us how to make a career out of the Chopin and the Beethoven. So a lot of where I am today was because of trial and error in the beginning, going after one thing and getting something else instead, and then having to make the best of it. And then eventually it became a very intentional path of creating something that really fit me as a person, as a musician, and as someone who wanted to make an impact.
So, how has your career developed?
I would say right out of grad school, I went to Northwestern University for my undergrad, majored in piano performance. And then I went to Rice University. And I ended up going to Northwestern. I was down to like Northwestern in Indiana. And I remember my mother was almost like a football NBA agent, right? We were fighting who's going to give us the most scholarship money, which teacher were we going to get, so competitive. And so the only dream at the time was to play Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, Chopin, wash, rinse, repeat. And I got into grad school and studied with Jackie Parker, who was doing what it was I wanted to do. And that was life-changing, right? To be studying with someone who was currently on a stage, currently cramming concerti. So there was no illusion as to what your life would be. It's like if you got what you said you wanted, you were not going to be sleeping a lot. You were going to be practicing a lot, as Jackie Parker did. And honestly, for me, St. John, my master's recital, I got done playing, and Jackie Parker took me back to the studio. And he said, I think you could do this. And it's like I wanted to write that on my calendar. You never hear that. You always get, well, it's a very tough industry, and you might be able to do a little bit of playing, but you're probably going to have to teach. No one ever just says, I think you could do this. And that was huge, hearing that from someone who was doing it. And he said these words. He said, Jade, if you first carve out your corner of the market, what's the music that you can play in your sleep that you feel like is your music? Focus on that. And then, play that over and over and see where that gets you first. And I focused on highly rhythmic music, whether it was Prokofiev or Barber, anything that had complex rhythms, I could play that very well. And sure enough, that landed me at the Concert Artists Guild competition. They created a new spot for me called New Music, New Places. And that put me into places like Town Hall on one weekend, but then I'd be in Le Poisson Rouge in New York, kind of nightclub vibe. And I started having this more eclectic musical career. And honestly, that was good. I was happy. I was playing with symphonies. And then honestly, I remember kind of going through this time where I was competing just to be on stages, not making a ton of money, but I was playing, right? I was playing. And I remember, and I'm married to my high school sweetheart, so I was married very young. And I thought, I really want to contribute more to my household, for one. And I also felt like I wasn't quite being all of who I could be. But behind the scenes, I was also very tired on stage because I was so busy trying to impress the audiences. I was playing the biggest pieces, the longest concerts, and I started talking to the audience in between the music to catch my breath, quite honestly. And that talking took on a life of its own. People started to then book me as the pianist who could also kind of give a lecture recital, or could come in early and speak to college students, or stay late and go to an elementary school. I could perform for any audience, or for kindergartners, or for, connoisseurs who knew the music. And so that started diversifying my career very early on. Long story as short as possible, that speaking started to be recognized by people outside of the music industry. And today I'm now brought in by major corporations and organizations to speak on creativity, innovation, reinvention, purpose. And that probably was like a 10-year span, right? From solely playing the piano to playing a little bit of 20th century music, along with standard classical, to speaking, to doing lecture recitals and musical seminars, to then being able to speak outside of the music industry. And that has taken on a life of its own. And there are lots of other branches that we could probably get to in the course of the interview, but that's the nutshell version.
One of the fundamental things that YTA offers beyond just the music competition is career development. And you are the person who is responsible, if you like, for shepherding that particular aspect of the organization. When you have these career development seminars through YTA, what are the fundamental things that you are trying to get across to these pre-professional musicians?
Yeah, the simplest way to put it is everything I wish I would have known when I came out of school. I think maybe there's a big disservice we sort of do to young musicians. One is to pretend like there is no option to really perform and have a profitable, prosperous performing career. So go ahead and think of your plan B and C and D, because you're never going to get plan A. That's a kind of a silent killer, I think, amongst many hopes in musicians' hearts and minds as they're coming through school. The other disservice we do is we only paint one picture of what a music career can look like, maybe one or two. You're either going to perform or you're going to teach, period, point blank. And then we also, there's a subtle message of, if you do anything that doesn't look traditional, somehow you didn't make it. You are doing the backup version of a career. And those things are very hard to dispel. And I know that because I'll give master classes in institutions like a Juilliard, right? Or where you have the highest level performers. And when you talk about career development, there's a little bit of resistance, because we've bought into this idea of, I don't need career development. I'll just play flawless Chopin etudes. But nobody tells you everybody plays flawless Chopin etudes. So what's your differentiator? What's your brand distinction? Why hire you over, enter Wunderkind name here? And then I may give a master class in a community college that has a music program. Those kids are much more interested. And I realize it's because they've already been working for the most part. So work is already a part of what they do. They're balancing work and their art. Many of them come from backgrounds where they didn't necessarily get to go to all the best music camps and study with all the best teachers. So there's a different mentality. They already come in thinking, I'm going to have to work and build this in some way, shape, or form. So that's been the interesting thing over the last few years. So with YTA, we want to instill a healthy understanding of what career building can look like. That to start thinking of what all your career can be is different than hearing what else is my career going to have to be because I didn't get what I was going after. So that starting with the fresh mentality of, as an artist, we're creatives and we have multiple options built in us. And our job is to figure out what those multiple facets are. And is there profitability that can be attached to each of those lanes of creativity?
You seem to be saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, what lies behind this idea of career development, certainly as you have experienced it and as you share it, is the artist coming to a better understanding of who they are themselves.
That's it.
There's something very personal, a very personal lesson to learn there, isn't there?
It's huge. And if you look at any great performer, that is the thing they have discovered. whether or not they set out to discover it, when you look at the greatest, I mean, from a Renee Fleming to a Yuja Wang, there's just something, there's a way that Yuja does things. There's a way that Long Long does things, right? There's a way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe because they also had this spectacular technical ability, they never had to do the work of finding this out. It sort of surfaced to the top. But I think those of us that will graduate and not have studied with so-and-so teacher who's best friends with so-and-so conductor who just happened to have a slot served in advance, right? And those are the things we don't know. We think that sort of the cream kind of rises, and it's a very relational industry, the world of classical music. And so we have to find alternative routes to the stages that we believe we have a reason to be on. And I think even if my Chopin etude isn't as fast as Yuja's, that shouldn't disqualify me of being able to play for an audience that would appreciate what I have to offer.
Fundamentally, though, this whole idea of career development is based upon your ability to play well, to perform well, to sing well. So it has to have a very solid, accomplished basis, doesn't it?
That's your foundation. And you can't get around it, because you can have the branding and the personality and the flash and dazzle, but you have to be able to offer something in terms of the art that you bring to the table. So it's in no way a substitute for excellence, but it's understanding now, especially today, your audience members have so many options. I mean, if I just want a flawless performance of Bach, I already know I'm going to go straight to my Glenn Gould recording, the second edition of the Goldberg Variations, the second edition of the Preludes and Fugues, when he was feeling all free and quirky. That's my go-to. Mm-hmm. If all I want is incredible Bach. So now to get me out of my home, right, to get me away from Netflix or whatever thing, there has to be something else that is magnetic. And I don't know, maybe because we've been so much of performance practice is about perfecting past tradition, we sort of forget that our present selves should be a part of the equation that we're offering. But you're right, the foundation has to be solid music making. And I think, when we start these conversations, most of the people who are in the rooms that I'm speaking to, they're all solid. They're either coming from the best schools, or in YTA's case, they're competition winners. So we know the music is there, but is the ability to connect with an audience there? Is the ability to create programs that are powerful and all engaging? Is that there? Because sometimes it's not. It's not. And many young musicians, they have the technique and the foundation, but they haven't given much thought to all the other stuff that matters.
For a lot of the young musicians, when you are doing the workshop, career development workshop through YTA, and you're talking to them about these things, about finding their own creativity, etc., how does that gel with what they're hearing in their music schools?
Yeah. Most people are very happy, because it's like I said, it's the stuff you don't get in music school. Now, to be fair, most music schools today offer some form of career development. Now, at the very least, you're going to learn how to write a bio. A musician's CV looks very different than an accountant's CV, so to speak. You're going to maybe get some interview training and maybe some ideas about how to build a studio. And then you have a lot on the production side, people who want to be in a music studio, recording artists. But I don't see a lot of talk about what does it look like to develop an artistic brand? What does it look like to go beyond being a person who plays gigs, to someone who creates all-encompassing experiences, right? So I feel like by the time people come to a YTA career seminar, which has been wonderful because they've opened it up to the community at large. So it's never just a room full of classical musicians. We have some people who are pop singers, some who are theater artists, playwrights. So we're talking in broader terms about how do we ourselves become a compelling product, right? A compelling brand that has something to offer. And it's gelling because these are the things we don't hear spoken about usually in our music courses, even in our career development courses. So it's exciting to see eyes kind of, get wide with possibility. Like, can we really do that? Can I actually say that? Can I do these things? And having permission to go beyond the instrument you play or the venues that you're used to playing in or the presentations that you're used to giving. You see a lot of people suddenly awaken to lots of possibilities.
How do you stay grounded in your, I want to say, competence at the keyboard? Yeah. I mean, there's something you have to keep working on, isn't it? You can't just put that to one side and say, well, I've got that down, so I don't need to work on that anymore.
No, I wish. And it's not quite like riding a bike either. There is maintenance required. And I'll tell you what, I can feel it when I've gone too long without strong, steady maintenance. And so now, because my business has become so broad, you know, the majority of my time, if I'm not traveling and speaking in these corporate settings where a piano comes with me, I'm a Yamaha artist. So piano's delivered and I'm speaking and performing to corporate audiences, which is really wonderful. But those audiences aren't as, they're not listening to the delivery of the music as closely as maybe my audience is when I come back and play in a concert hall. So the onus on me is to keep up that practice. And so right now, October, November, December, in my company, we've set aside as my creativity quarter. And that's where I practice for many more hours a day. I'm learning new repertoire, or else I'd never be able to learn new repertoire. I know Jackie Parker would talk about that. Like, you have all this repertoire, but getting the time to learn something new is what takes more time. So I think the artist who is able to begin to spread their wings has to be that much more diligent in keeping that core competency. I don't play a lot of straight ahead concerts as much anymore. But if I want to, because of the revenue my other streams allow me, I can book a concert hall, produce my own concert, just for the purpose of keeping up my chops, right? And making sure that I am in my original state performing at a level that I can be proud of.
When you talk about career development, it's not something that happens once and then stops. You must find that your career continues to develop.
Oh, yeah. It's never I think every year it's different for me. Now, part of that is I'm addicted to change. So if I don't look different in some way professionally every 18 months, something's wrong. I mean, even my hair changes every 2 weeks. So it's like I have to have that change. But I also think that, especially for artists, change is crucial. I think it's a little more suspicious if you're still doing exactly the same thing as you were 10, 15 years ago. I think you should be asking some questions. What else is there? So I think of career development most simply in the terms of career development is simply being open to different possibilities all of the time. So your career, 1 year for me, there was a year where I was teaching as an adjunct professor at University of Houston. A course on career development, now that I think about it. And it was open to art students, but also to, I don't think everybody there was an arts major or performing arts major. And that was a different season for me, right? I'm doing lesson planning and grading and these things. And there was a season when I was in a Broadway type musical production, starring in it. I had to learn to sing and learn to play jazz. So that's, and learn to act, right? All of a sudden. So that was a stretch. And then there's these seasons where I'm actively building my company, saying, what are the new products we're offering to corporations? So for me, it's we said it offline, it's a continuous journey. And I think that for me is the biggest goal, getting artists to be open to a journey versus one destination. Because they'll find, you make it to that stage, and it's wonderful to be on those stages. But after a little while, you start going, okay, is this it, or is there something else? And I think that's a good question to be asking yourself. And it might be it for a while. Season could be as long as 1 year, could be a 5-year long season. But I think to be open to possibility, and I guess that also revolves around what your goals are. I mean, maybe what you want as an artist, as a single female, will be different if suddenly you're a married female with 2 kids. You may need something different from your arts career. And I want to equip artists with the ability to be able to pivot when they want to pivot, not just based on the circumstances they find themselves in.
It's very important then that YTA realizes this idea of career development is something that is so central to the life of an artist, and something that needs to be central right from the earliest possible time.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons I love working with YTA. One of the things that I asked was, can we have this aspect? Because for me now, it feels slightly irresponsible to only be talking to artists about one path. And the truth is, most of the artists who will come through YTA, that's one of 8 to 10 competitions they're going to do that year. Right. And most of them don't offer, even some of the biggest ones who remain nameless don't really offer a lot of professional development. It's just you win and suddenly you're a professional. No one taught you about the mental wear and tear of performing. How do you regroup? How do you recover? How do you deal with criticism? You're suddenly a name now. Do you read the critic's review or do you not read the review? I mean, I think career development now will have to also include things like health and wellness, which is very different for a musician. We live either on the stage or in our heads. The music's never stopping. We're always practicing. That wrong note we played last night is resounding over and over the next day. And there's so much there that I think we need to be serving our young artists in a more holistic way if we want them to not be exhausted and burnt out by the very thing they've been working their whole life to get to.
Well, Jade, you have been working with YTA for a good number of years, and YTA is very lucky to have you. And I know that all of the musicians that come through YTA and get to meet you and interact with you and learn from you are very grateful for that. And so we are very grateful for all that you do. Jade Simmons, thank you very much.
Thank you again for having me.